Hello, and welcome to the presentation, Designing and Developing Your Grant Website. My name is Rachel Romeo. I'm a Senior Communications Manager representing the National Clearinghouse of Rehabilitation Training Materials, or NCRTM team. During this session, we're going to discuss all things you need to know about website development, including designing with your audience in mind, content strategy, 508 compliance, and ongoing maintenance. We also have two Disability Innovation Funds, or DIF, grantee websites we're going to highlight: Vermont Pathways to Partnerships and Evolve Employment, part of Minnesota's State Services for the Blind. Representatives from each of those teams will share the ins and outs of their respective websites' development and lessons learned. We are so glad you chose to join us for the session. Let's get into the objectives. Slide 2, Objectives. By the end of this session, you should be able to identify the required elements for compliance on grant-funded websites, describe the features that contribute to a usable and accessible website, apply provided resources and examples when planning or developing a grant-funded website, and lastly, explain the importance of maintaining a well-organized and active web presence. Slide 3, Why your website matters. Okay, as we begin, why does your website matter? In grant work, there are so many things you are doing at the beginning of your project. I know setting up a website can seem like a box to check. It's one more thing on the to-do list that doesn't fit into the great programmatic work that you're doing every day. But let me express that when done correctly, a website is a tool that can help make your day-to-day easier. Your website fulfills your statement of work, but it's also your project's first impression. While you may go through several versions of your website through the grant period, the website is an essential tool to recruit participants and partners and share valuable resources. It promotes visibility, collaboration, and transparency for the great work you're doing, and it becomes a living resource. This is your platform for storytelling, stakeholder engagement, and scaling your project's reach. The more you update and invest in your website, the more it can become a helpful tool for the participants and the field. Believe me, developing your website and strategically thinking through its contents is worth the effort and time. Slide 4, Planning your website. Let's get into the details of planning your website. We're going to discuss initial considerations, content and usability, and Section 508 compliance. Slide 5, Extension versus from scratch. To get your website up and running, you must first identify which camp you fall into, an extension or from scratch. Extension websites are just that, an extension of your organization's web presence. If your parent organization has a .gov, .org, or .edu website, you likely fall into this category. Extension websites are efficient and that the process to get your website developed is pretty streamlined. You may also have internal communications or IT team that can help with this. With from scratch websites, you are in charge of everything when it comes to development: finding a site host, establishing a domain name, developing the content, determining the look and feel, and so on. Do not let this scare you though. This can be a really exciting endeavor that allows you to establish your project's brand through your website. Let's review the table on the next slide to review a couple considerations for each category. Slide 6, Extension versus from scratch, continued. At the start of development, regardless if you fall into the extension or from scratch categories, there are questions you need answered. Let's take a look at the extension section of the table. Because your parent organization already has an established web presence, you need to ask the IT team about the specifics of their web platform. Is it custom built or does it leverage a content management system, commonly referred to as a CMS, to update content? Some examples of popular CMSs include Drupal, WordPress, and Squarespace. A custom built website relies on a developer to update content, while a CMS generally allows non technical users to manage and update content. What is the process for updating website content? How easy would it be to have a custom URL for your project? Can you integrate multimedia, like videos, into it easily? Your parent organization's IT team should give you the blueprint of what the site is capable of and any procedures and timelines for publishing content. At the same meeting with the IT team, determine if there's any established branding that you must incorporate into your project. Think fonts, logos, colors, style rules, etc. Lastly, you should determine who will handle the content development process and any future updates. Does your project team have a dedicated communication specialist, or will you need to coordinate with the internal communications and IT teams? Moving along to the from scratch section of the table, you'll need to identify a developer to create your website. A developer will help you bring your vision to life. You'll also need to determine if you wish to have a custom built or CMS based website. A custom built site will require more involvement from a developer, whereas a CMS generally enables non technical staff to handle most updates independently. You'll also need to determine your project's branding. Determine if you have staff in house or if you need a design firm to help with branding. And lastly, just like the extension category, you need to determine which staff will be in charge of the website's development and all future updates. Slide 7, defining your audience. Before diving into content development, it's important your project team is clear on your website's audience. Most likely, you'll need to cater content around multiple audiences. Remember, your website can be a tool for your project's participants and their families, help establish future partnerships, and provide updates on your work to the field. Focus on answering the following questions. Who will frequent this website? In other words, who will be your main audience? The age range of this audience is also key to how you develop content. What is the main call to action or behavior you want people to complete on your website? Is it selecting an enroll button or requesting more information via email? Determine the ideal audience for that call to action behavior. Lastly, and most importantly, are any key audiences referenced in your statement of work? Ensure the website and content you're developing accounts for any required audiences. Slide 8, developing a development timeline. Okay, setting a timeline. This is going to drive the development of your website's content and all supplemental materials. Per the Rehabilitation Services Administration, grantees must develop a website in year 1 of your grant and maintain that web presence in years 2 through 5. You should be updating the website during that time. This being said, a best practice is to pick a launch date and work backwards. Select a date for the navigation pages to be determined, all the page content drafted and approved, images and videos secured, and so on. The more you stick to your timeline, the easier development will be. Slide 9, content and usability. Now, let's dive into the content you'll need and how to ensure good website usability. Slide 10, content and usability, content strategy. Your website is one large content deliverable that requires some strategic thinking. Ask yourself what types of resources your audience would find valuable. Another question: given your audience's characteristics, such as age range, type of disability, role, do you need to use a specific tone with your messaging? Formal versus simplified language, etc. Paying attention to your audience's needs will drive the core features and pages of your website. As a good rule of thumb, welcome, about us, resources, and news and events are pages that users have come to expect in a navigation bar. Next, there are several content items that are grant required, including goals, objectives, and expected outcomes of the project. You also need to ensure key personnel, partners, and vendors, as well as your federal disclaimer language, are prominently displayed. One of the websites we'll highlight today, Minnesota's Evolve Employment, does a great job of clearly displaying these required elements. Slide 11, Content and Usability, Intuitive Usability. Think about some of the best project or grantee websites you've visited. They are likely simple in design and easy to navigate. With clearly labeled sections, finding the information you need takes minimal effort. This is the kind of experience you want to strive for with your project website. A few tips to keep in mind. Keep things simple. Clear language and intuitive information hierarchy are key. Use your heading styles, keep the navigation bar simple. Once you have your first few wireframes of the website, pretend you're a brand new user. If you can't find what you're looking for with minimal effort, try to reconfigure your pages. Branding should be clear and consistent. Make sure you're using consistent colors, fonts, and logos throughout the website. This even rings true for grammar. If you use a serial comma in lists, make sure every instance of a list uses a serial comma. This also adds a level of credibility to your site. One additional note: if you're an extension website, it helps to have a distinct logo or branding that separates you from your parent organization. While you may share colors and fonts, ensuring the distinction between entities is important. Use descriptive link text. This is an accessibility practice and is helpful for all your website users. Instead of just using "click here," be more descriptive. For example, follow the link to our YouTube channel. Fast loading times and mobile responsiveness are critical and required by RSA. Mobile browser use has skyrocketed over the last 5 years, outpacing desktop browsing. Most likely, your users will be accessing your website via a mobile device at some point. Slide 12, Content and Usability, Search Engine Optimization. As we've discussed, your website can be a very useful tool, and you want to make sure that the right people find it. This is where SEO, or search engine optimization, comes in. SEO is about making your website more appealing to search engines like Google and Bing. Obviously, when people type in keywords that are relevant to your work, you want your website to appear higher in the search results. There are a couple ways to do this. While it takes a little time to establish good SEO, these practices should be implemented from the start. 1. Use keywords and continuously research them. There are always buzzwords in this field. Make sure the content you're putting on your website includes those keywords. This is also a good motivator to ensure you keep your website updated. For example, for disability employment programs, I would ensure you're using the keyword competitive integrated employment on your website and in your materials. 2. Create high-quality content. Just getting your website up and running is the first step. You've got to keep it updated with new, fresh content and resources. When I say high quality content, I mean content that answers a frequently asked question amongst the field or your audience. Look at the purpose of your project and think about what you are the authority on. Post articles, host webinars, create briefs, develop reports on those topics, and use keywords within that content deliverable. Keep apprised on what's trending among the field, your participants, and partners. To note, a good example of high quality content that would help boost SEO with the right keywords is Mathematica's evidence review report, What Works to Promote Competitive Integrated Employment Among People with Disabilities. 3. And finally, backlinking. This is simply making sure your website and resources hosted on your site are linked by other entities. This could be other websites, social media, e-newsletters, and so on. Simple enough, but the goal is that other websites with good SEO link to you and bring up your own SEO. Hence why high quality content is so essential. Slide 13. Content and usability, security. Ensuring your website is secure is essential and required by RSA and your parent organization. If your website involves any personally identifiable information or PII, it is especially important. Please reference your grant statement of work for specific requirements, but generally, every grantee must implement appropriate measures to protect any sensitive data collected through the website in accordance with federal privacy regulations. Be sure to also ask your parent organization's IT and/or security teams for any additional requirements they may require for your website. Slide 14, Section 508 compliance. Moving along to Section 508 compliance, a critical aspect of any website developed. Slide 15, Section 508, accessibility basics. Accessibility is not only a grant requirement, it ensures the most people can access your website and resources. When developing your website, you need to factor in accessibility from the start. Having to remediate after the fact can be costly and time-consuming. For your web presence, you need to adhere to Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG 2.2. These can be found at w3.org and shared with your developer or IT team. WCAG 2.2 provides guidance on how to properly set up HTML and embedded multimedia for optimal readability and usability for users with and without tools designed to enhance the functional capabilities individuals with disabilities use, known as assistive technologies. Digital documents such as Word, PowerPoint, and PDF that are uploaded to your website need to be accessible as well. Through document remediation, a process in which documents are tagged, reading order is specified, and alternative text is provided, these digital materials are made readable to all users. Let's walk through a few key accessibility practices to keep in mind. Slide 16, Section 508, Key Accessibility Practices. First, clear alternative text for images. There are two types of images that could be on your website or digital documents: meaningful and non-meaningful images. Meaningful images are pertinent to the information being shared. For example, on the right side of the slide, I have an image showing people volunteering at an event. Let's say your project, called Collective Community, throws an annual charity event. This image appears on your event page. I would include the alt text, several volunteers at Collective Community's annual charity event. This image is relevant to the information shared, and therefore it's meaningful. However, if on your website header you used a background image, say a bunch of library books or a graphic that shows repeating cogwheels, this is simply decorative. I would artifact this image so that assistive technologies do not pick it up. Next, clear heading structure. You'll notice in authoring tools like Word, there is a styles pane where you can pick heading styles, such as H1, H2, H3, and so on. Creating information hierarchy with heading styles is great for readability and accessibility alike. Note that there should only be a singular H1 in a document. This is the title. Ensure colors meet high contrast standards. For those with low vision or color blindness, high contrast is needed. But from a design standpoint, it benefits everyone. Ensure that text over a background meets a contrast ratio of 4 to 5 to 1. You can test this by downloading a color contrast analyzer tool. We've included one on the resources slide. And lastly, as we've discussed, all digital documents should be tagged or remediated to have their reading order specified. More info on this in one moment. Slide 17, Section 508, Using Multimedia. The use of multimedia is a great way to capture an audience. That said, you must follow accessibility guidelines when including these formats. What you'll need to consider. As previously discussed, images need appropriate alt text. Videos require closed captioning. This can be added during the video editing process, or if you're hosting the video on a platform such as YouTube, when you upload the video, it is automatically captioned. However, it is not perfect, and you will need to review and correct any captioning errors. Based on the specifics of your grant, you may also need to include American Sign Language or ASL interpretation. There are interpreting providers that you can book services through. And lastly, audio. With the boom of podcasts, you may have one and want to host it on your website. You may also just have a standalone interview or recording that's audio only. These are great resources, but you'll need to ensure you have an accurate transcript available for download. Slide 18, Section 508, NCRTM Accessibility Support. We know Section 508 requirements are a lot to remember, especially if you have not developed a website referencing them before. I want you to leave this session knowing that the NCRTM can be your trusted partner in all things 508 related. The NCRTM website has a dedicated accessibility resources section located at ncrtm.ed.gov/accessibility-resources. There, you'll find tutorial videos, checklists, and an in-depth quick guides that walk you through digital document remediation, video work, and more. You can also email ncrtm@neweditions.net to request support. Slide 19, Website Launch Considerations. Remember that your website launch is technically phase 1. You can start simple and refine or expand your website over time. Slide 20, Launch Considerations, Quality Assurance. You should be doing regular quality assurance or QA checks through the course of website development, but be sure to schedule one final check prior to launch day. You never know what may have slipped through the cracks. On your task list should be check all links, make sure relevant SEO keywords are integrated into your content for optimal search ranking, test website functionality, ensure there are no spelling or grammatical errors. This is an easy one to fix, but also very easy to overlook. Test any contact forms, buttons, etc. It would be not fun to miss out on key participants or partners due to a form malfunction. And lastly, Work with your developer to ensure Google Analytics is set up to track your website. It's free, and the insights it provides can be valuable for measuring your website's performance and evaluating its overall success. Slide 21. Launch considerations. Listen to your users. Another launch consideration: listen to your users. This is pre and post launch. Be sure to build in time for a small focus group or consumer survey about a month before launch. This will allow you to take in that feedback and make updates accordingly. Continue with this trend of surveying users once your website is live as well. In terms of analytics, review metrics in Google Analytics regularly. You can view data on new users versus returning users, popular links, page views, the general geographic makeup of your audience, bounce rate, time spent on page, and source traffic. These details can help you better understand your audience and what type of resources they may want to see on your website. Remember, the goal is to have a website that both functions well and becomes a trusted resource. Really pay attention to what users are saying, both from a functionality and content standpoint. And reminder, using SEO keywords and updating your site regularly shows the search engines that your site is active, helping increase your search ranking. Review and update materials, add resources, and promote project successes to get users coming back to your website. And while there is the requirement to get your website live in year one of your grant, consider that the earlier you launch the website in your grant cycle, the more you can maximize your reach. And now I'm excited to get into our case study examples. We have Dacia Van Alstein, Project Manager of Evolve Employment, the project and website we'll be discussing today. Looking at the website types we discussed at the beginning of the presentation, their website falls into the extension category. During our Q&A, you'll see a screenshot of their website, mn.gov/deed/ssb/evolve, featured on the screen. Question 1. Tell us about your project. What makes your organization and project unique?
This is Dacia. Minnesota State Services for the Blind, or SSB, is under the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development and is uniquely positioned to lead the Evolve Employment Model demonstration as a nationally recognized, blindness-specific vocational rehabilitation agency with deep community roots and a long-standing commitment to innovation and access. What sets us apart is our tailored approach to serving individuals who acquire blindness, low vision, or deaf blindness during their working years, an underserved and often overlooked population. Evolve Employment integrates cutting-edge assistive and emerging technologies and a tiered rapid engagement team model that brings together career navigation, benefits planning, language support, and sector-based business engagement. Our enhanced progressive employment model and focus on high-demand customer service and technology careers reflect a dual customer strategy that meets the needs of both job seekers and employers. By blending lived experience, field-initiated practices, and strong statewide partnerships, our program not only expands access and capacity, but builds a transportable, people-first employment model with the power to reshape how systems serve adults with acquired vision loss.
Question 2. Provide a quick timeline for us on your website's development.
Natasha Jurdy announced the DIF Grant Award to staff and State Rehabilitation Council for the Blind on September 10th, 2024. Webpage discussions began on September 12th, 2024, and the Evolve Employment website went live on October 10th, 2024.
Question 3. What were your initial steps in website development once you were awarded the grant?
In September of 2024, we held an initial meeting with SSB's outreach and marketing team. The decision was made to host the Evolve Employment web pages on the SSB website. Initial content was drafted based off our DIF grant application document and sent to DEED's communication team, where a staging site was created. Once approved, it went live in early October. It should be noted that website content was a collaborative effort between SSB's director, deputy director, and the outreach and marketing team. Website coding and development was created by DEED's communication team. Keyword information for SEO was incorporated into the web pages as they were built.
Question 4. In terms of Section 508, what was your process in ensuring that accessibility guidelines were met, especially given your audience of blind, low vision, and deafblind participants?
The website developers at DEED's communication team have accessibility front of mind when creating any web page. The content management system assists by making sure they are filling in appropriate fields when building the pages and sites. Communication staff strive to ensure accessibility by using correct coding upfront.
Question 5. Eventually, what will be the main call to action or behavior you want users to make on your website?
Based on our goals, our main call to action for the website will be to engage users in connecting with and utilizing the services, tools, and resources offered through the grant. For job seekers who are blind, low vision, or deafblind, this may mean connecting with a career navigator, receive assistance to keep a job from our retention specialist, and more. For businesses, it may involve initiating competitive integrated employment practices, exploring retention solutions, or accessing training on accessibility and accommodations. For community partners and professionals, the call to action may be to participate in training, collaborate on service delivery, or explore resources. Overall, the website will be a central platform that encourages connection, action, and collaboration among all key audiences.
Question 6. Once your website went live, how did you communicate its launch with your audiences?
Because we are still building the foundation of our program, we've taken an intentional approach to launching and promoting the website. Initially, we have shared the site internally and with the State Rehabilitation Council for the Blind to gather early feedback and ensure accessibility and alignment with program goals. Rather than a broad public push before the full program is ready, we will do a coordinated external rollout that will coincide with key milestones, such as finalized service offerings, partner trainings, and participant engagement. This intentional rollout ensures that when we promote the website widely, it will reflect a robust, active program with clear calls to action and value for each of our core audiences.
Question 7. Finally, any lessons learned that you feel are worth sharing with other grantees?
One, don't get too hung up with decision paralysis. For our website, we accepted that our first product was not going to be perfect, but rather it would be an evolution over time. And two, make sure your product is not only accessible but usable. Accessibility is the bare minimum. It may meet the checkbox, but it may not be a great experience. Usability is the gold standard. People of all abilities can easily and seamlessly get the information they need. To get to usability, you need to have users test out the product before implementation.
Thank you so much to Daisha for meeting with us today to discuss the Evolve Employment website. The URL is on slide 25, resources. Slide 23, case study, Vermont Pathways to Partnerships. Now, we are joined by the team from Vermont Pathways to Partnerships. Kim Guidry, Administrative Services Manager for Vermont Pathways to Partnerships, and Sienna Tuine, Senior Project Coordinator from the Vermont Family Network, are here to chat. Their website is in the From Scratch category. They work with a developer on both their website and branding. During our Q&A, you'll see aspects of their website, Pathways to Partnerships, vt.org, featured on the screen. Let's get into our discussion. Question 1. Tell us about your program. What makes your organization and program unique?
Hi, thanks. This is Kim Guidry. Vermont Pathways to Partnerships partners with several community nonprofits in Vermont who are supporters and advocates of those with disabilities across the whole state. One of our larger partners is another Vermont vocational rehabilitation unit called Hireability. Hireability already has a presence in most of the Vermont high schools. Hireability, in combination with our other 11 community partners and high schools, will help us deliver messaging, activities, and training to middle schoolers, high school staff, and families. Our core audience is students with 504s and those students with individualized education plans, or IEPs, students aged 10 to 24. We're also providing activities and training to those families and or guardians and school professionals and community professionals. We focus on enhancing what's already in the schools, as well as bringing more training to school administration and transitional professionals. Our Center for Independent Living will help school professionals include independent living skills into IEPs in a more effective manner. A powerful innovation of Vermont P2P is the shared community organization and involvement of leaders within the disability rights and independent living movement as partners with state entities and community nonprofits.
Question 2. Provide a quick timeline for us on your website's development.
Sure, this is Kim again. Vermont was awarded the P2P grant in October of 2023. And because of Vermont's award acceptance protocol, the state protocol, the website project started in August of 2024. One of Vermont P2P's subrecipients, called the Vermont Family Network, their deliverable was to start an RFP process for a website developer. VFN, Vermont Family Network, started that process in the beginning of August 2024. The timeline between putting the RFP out, receiving, sorting, and reviewing applications took about 6 weeks. We were very excited to agree on a developer named Ask the Egghead LLC for our website development. Egghead's first tasks were to immediately help us secure a URL and then create a very basic website and go live, as per RSA's requirements, by the middle of September. We were successful and on time. We created a website working group and a subgroup comprised of Kim Guidry and Sienna Tuine of that working group. Kim and Sienna initiated at least weekly and sometimes more frequently check-ins with Egghead and our website working group with clearly designed phases. Egghead helped us with strategy, design ideas, content guidance, accessibility reviews, and quality assurance. The branding and logo development process went from October 2024 to January 2025. Once we had our logo, our website working group focused on how we wanted to organize the site and content creation. And by the end of March 2025, the current version of the website went live.
Question 3. Talk a little more about this working group. How large was the group and how often did you meet?
Hi, this is Sienna Tuane speaking. It was comprised of 7 volunteers from our grant subrecipient community and the Vermont Pathways to Partnership staff. The smaller team consisted of myself and Kim, and we met with Ask the Egghead weekly to present and discuss solutions and get guidance about next steps and strategies to bring back to the working group. The working group met bi-weekly with frequent emailing in between those meetings. Once the working group narrowed options, we presented those options at our monthly steering committee meetings for input and feedback. Our steering committee includes representation from our community and school partners and students with disabilities. The advantage of a smaller working group is that we could do the time-consuming work of collecting information, sifting through the large amount of content and images, and narrow down options that then were presented to the larger steering committee. This made the process much more efficient. For example, when we were in our content planning and development phase, each member of the website working group took on a portion of the content, then shared their draft with the rest of the group for input and feedback. Once we all agreed to that content, we sent it to Ask the Egghead for placement on the site.
Question 4. On your website, in lieu of photography, you have custom stylized graphics. Can you explain this choice?
Hi, this is Sienna Tuane speaking again. We discussed at great lengths the option of photographs versus stylized graphics, aka vectors. We initially wanted a combination of both on the site, but Ask the Egghead advised against the mix, saying that sticking to one or the other gives a more consistent image and feel to the site as a whole. It's also been helpful to have such a customizable format for imagery to represent our core audience. If a graphic needs to look like an older student, or a student with a cane instead of a walker, or a student with a different hairstyle, we can request that and Egghead will create it rather quickly.
Question 5. What is the main call to action or behaviors you want users to make on your website?
This is Kim. We want users to look around the site and ultimately complete the enrollment form online. From that action, we connect a student with someone to find out what their interest is and how we can connect them with activities or trainings that will support their individual goals.
Question 6. In terms of Section 508, what was your process in ensuring that accessibility guidelines were met?
Hi, this is Sienna Tuane speaking. Accessibility was built into every stage of the project. Egghead conducted compliance reviews and applied AAA standards, the highest accessibility and conformance level, and Section 508 standards. They handled tasks like ARIA labeling, keyboard navigation testing, and color contrast validation. We felt confident launching with full compliance in place. The AAA standard was above and beyond Vermont P2P's requirement, but we felt it was very important to have the increased accessibility.
Question 7. Did you do any usability testing prior to launch?
This is Kim. Yes. The last week of March 2025, the site was tested internally and by a few external users just to identify any friction points there might be. Our developer, Ask the Egghead, collected feedback and applied usability improvements, especially around navigation and mobile responsiveness.
Question 8. You are technically in the beginning stages of this website. How do you plan to enhance and update it as your grant progresses?
Yeah, this is Kim again. We plan to expand the content with downloadable tools, translated materials, and potentially multimedia resources. We will continue to work with our developer on SEO, analytics insights, and usability enhancements to keep the site fresh and effective. We will hire a student intern to help us keep the site relevant to students. And we will continue to add transition events to our online calendar, upload postings, success stories, and conference insights.
Question 9. Finally, any lessons learned that you feel are worth sharing with other grantees?
Hi, this is Sienna Tuane. Yes, definitely find a developer who guides and teaches, not just produces and executes. Make accessibility a priority from the beginning. Assign a clear internal lead to coordinate with your developer, internal or external. This streamlines the entire process, makes it more efficient, and saves money. Keep content planning realistic and simple. Make sure text is in plain language. Use AI to help. Set a launch date and aim for really good, but not perfection. Websites are work in progress. Include your target audience, especially students, on input and feedback groups, and meet regularly to make adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much to Kim and Sienna for meeting with us today to discuss their website. Again, the URL is pathways-to-partnerships-vt.org. Slide 24. Work with the NCRTM. Those were wonderful examples of grant websites. Thank you so much to the teams at Vermont Pathways for Partnerships and Minnesota's Evolve Employment. As we close, I want to remind you that the NCRTM is here to be a resource for you. We can help promote your website through the NCRTM library, promotional efforts, and newsletter. NCRTM can also support you with accessibility and remediation help. For DIF-related support and technical assistance, email diffta@neweditions.net. For general promotion and accessibility-related support, email ncrtm@neweditions.net. Slide 25, Resources. On this resources slide, we have linked several helpful resources and tools that are relevant to this session, including the NCRTM Grantee Toolkit, WebAIM Color Contrast Analyzer, WCAG 2.2 Guidelines, and the websites featured today, Vermont Pathways to Partnerships and Minnesota Evolve Employment. Thank you again for joining.
Disclaimer. The contents of this presentation were developed under contract 91990023 D0037-91990024 F0395 from the U.S. Department of Education Department. The department does not mandate or prescribe practices, models, or other activities described or discussed in this presentation. The contents of this presentation may contain examples of, adaptations of, and links to resources created and maintained by another public or private organization. The department does not control or guarantee the accuracy, relevance, timeliness, or completeness of this outside information. The contents of this presentation does not necessarily represent the policy of the department. This presentation is not intended to represent the views or policy of, or be an endorsement of any views expressed or materials provided by any federal agency. Edgar 75.620.